Hi guys, the local elections in Northern Ireland may have had an unintended consequence. They may free up the DUP to rejoin the executive and allow a government to operate in Northern Ireland. There was a real fear within Jeffrey Donaldson's party that they would lose support to the TUV, a more extreme party, but that didn't happen. The DUP vote held up and the TUV came away with pretty much nothing. With the threat from the extremists in unionism over the Northern Ireland Protocol off the table, the DUP may feel free to rejoin the executive. Here Belfast Telegraph journalist Suzanne Breen explains.
I would see the institutions being up and running probably around late September, and that is because the DUP vote has been completely consolidated. If you'd said to party headquarters on May the 17th, would they take a result which showed less than a 1% drop in their support compared to 2019, which showed them holding all their council seats, they would have taken it in a moment. And they've seen off the TUV. There's all this talk constantly of a TUV surge. It didn't happen in terms of representatives at the Assembly election, and it hasn't happened in terms of councillors now. The party, I think, is still in single digits in terms of its representatives on local government. And Jeffrey Donaldson, I think, now no longer has to look over his shoulder at Jim Allister. Jim Allister will always be there as a very assertive voice within unionism, but I don't think electorally the TUV is going to become a major player. Jeffrey Donaldson has also seen the Ulster Unionists down. They're down 3%. So really he is in a strong position to take control of the situation and do what we all know that he wants to do, which is to see devolution restored.
Everyone wants to see devolution restored. The people of Northern Ireland, the British government, Rishi Sunak, the Irish government, the EU and the United States. All of these want to see devolution restored in Northern Ireland. Now, how did we get to this situation? And I'll explain why I think this is maybe a bit of a masterstroke by the DUP. So we're in this situation because in the run-up to the Assembly elections, where Sinn Féin became the biggest party, the DUP said we would not go. Well, there were rumours that they dodged the question of whether they would go into government with Sinn Féin. And of course, the TUV, which is more extreme, said no unionist party should go into government with Sinn Féin if Sinn Féin become the largest party. Now, the TUV obviously knew that they would never become a large enough party to go into government with Sinn Féin. So they were sniping from the sidelines. They were hecklers. And this put the fear of God into the DUP. They were afraid that they were going to lose support to the TUV. Now, it didn't really work out that way, but they had made a sort of promise that they would not go into government with Sinn Féin. When the results came in and it was time to form the executive, the DUP had to come up with an excuse. This is my belief. And the excuse was the Northern Ireland Protocol. And they put pressure on Boris Johnson's government, Liz Truss's government, Rishi Sunak's government to get rid of the protocol. None of this worked. There were threats to trigger Article 16. None of this actually came about. But there was always this constant fear that they were going to lose support if they buckled under this pressure from the European Union, the Irish government, the Americans, and to a lesser extent the UK government. This would see them lose support to the TUV. And as the local elections have demonstrated, that's not the case. Now, there were some rumours before the local elections this month that the DUP would actually rejoin the executive. Now, this is probably a bit of a masterstroke, as I said. This is a bit of risk-taking on the side of Jeffrey Donaldson. So to put out this rumour that the DUP would be looking at rejoining the executive in September, this hasn't affected their vote. So they took a risk. There was a risk that they would lose support to the TUV. That didn't happen. And now Jeffrey Donaldson is in a position where he can go and say, yeah, we're going to rejoin the executive, because there's a massive amount of pressure within Northern Ireland and outside Northern Ireland to form the executive. People, the general public, are concerned about the cost of living, the NHS, education, and we're seeing the consequences of that in Northern Ireland. The services have been cut back because there isn't there isn't an executive operating. So the DUP are under pressure, and you can't continue this indefinitely. You'll have to reform, you'll have to rejoin the executive at some stage. So as pressure has been applied outside Northern Ireland and within it, the DUP probably wanted to rejoin the executive in the first place, but this fear of losing support to the TUV was always a worry for them. Now that that's gone, well, there's nothing to worry about. They can rejoin the executive, reform that executive, and do what they were paid to do. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.